Welcome back, or just welcome as appropriate. This is Fatmarrow. That is not my birth name. I am designing crap levels for a game called Ground Branch, which uses the Unreal Engine 4. My background is with doing very old levels for the Unreal Tournament engine 15 years ago. So I'm bringing that up-to-date skill set to bear in this whole new paradigm. So I did an introduction to my Antibes level last time. Antibes level, and I thought I'd do something a bit more specific this time, in case anyone cares. I was going to make an air conditioner unit because Antibes is in the south of France and it gets very hot. I will be using a lot of air conditioners in my level, and I will probably be using them as instant message. I still can't say that word. I will be using them as instant message, as instant meshes. There we go. Because there'll be a lot of the same meshes put throughout the level. They're relatively low poly, hopefully, and that will make the performance better overall, even though it's an extra layer of faff. The thing about the Unreal Engine is that you look at the demos, you can make things look amazing, and if you make more than a room full of things, you start to have to do things differently to get better performance, but that's life. So I have in Photoshop a air conditioner texture, which I've slightly chopped up, made to fit into a standard sized texture, which is 1024 by 1024. I probably will scale that down to 512 by 512 because, as I've said before, I'm really trying to keep the texture size down. That's the main thing I'm having to control to make this a viable add-on map, community map for the Ground Branch game. I have no official affiliation with the game. I just like the cut of its jib, and I'd like to get some of my old school goodness into that tactical realism shooter, because that's the kind of guy I am. So this is actually going to be a placeholder because I forget the rights for this one. It was free, but I'd rather use my own textures just to make life easier on the legal side, being an IP lawyer and all. And here's some of my photo reference stuff from Antibes. I've actually got a few photos where I've collected some air conditioner reference material. I could make something workable out of that, and I may well indeed do that. In fact, yeah, let's start a game with this. So this is in Lightroom, which I use because I'm a photographer. I need to correct the color balance a bit. It's going to be imperfect and approximate. I've only got the one side, so I might make a very unrealistic air conditioner. Just going to tweak the brightness a bit. This is going to be a horrible texture to work with. It's going to have a slightly odd perspective on it, but I'll just show you what I'll do with this. I'm confused because I'm using this in a single screen configuration. That's the one, rather than losing my train of thought. Actually doing things means I can't talk. I've got that very basic limitation. So there it is. I'll open that up in Photoshop. So that's my version. Yeah, I went to Antibes twice. The first time I took a very basic wide-angle lens, so the photo quality is not that good. So this is my basic technique for extracting textures. Everything I do is a bit shoddy. I'm quite upfront about that. I bodge my way through the level, and if I have the inclination or the time, I'll go back and fix what most needs fixing at the end, which often is not very much. So my sort of patented, if you like, approach is to say I'm creating 3D impressionism, which is a way of saying I'm not getting it really very right, and I don't care. But as long as it feels a bit like the place, that's fine. But I'll just do a bit of cloning, just to... Oh, that didn't work. Let's try from there. Just give it a little bit of a... Oh, that didn't work either. Let's change that a little bit. Perhaps I should put a time lapse on this. Still not quite right, but you know, this is going to be reduced in size and you won't really notice it. There's a nice bit of dirt there. I might clean that bit up because it's going to be a bit distracting. And that's not bad actually. I'd like to have a side view for the vents. I could, in fact I probably will improvise that with this main texture. So I think I'm going to move that across a bit because that just distracts a bit. And that's a nasty old job, but for the purpose of demonstration that might suffice. Maybe I'll bring that up a bit too. I'll have to tidy that up a little bit. What you don't want is to have the appearance of a cloned image. So I might take a bit from there and bring that up and just... I'm using the wrong size brush really for this. For some reason I feel the need to speed up while I'm chatting. I've never really had any formal training in Photoshop and it probably shows. No, I'll leave it like that. That's going to be good enough. Now there's all sorts of, pardon me, this is my regular interruption. This is horrible and grainy and distorted. But actually, I'm going to resize it, then tweak it. Because sometimes when you resize it, what am I going to go with this? Maybe that format. I want to get the minimum required to make it look passable. These are going to be mostly stuck up in the air, so I could probably even do that. And I think that would be fine. I think that'll be fine. I should process it in high res. There's a thing called Crazy Bump, which I use to make normal maps for these sort of things. I think it's going to make a dog's breakfast of that area there, the grill. So I might not bother. If I was being methodical, I might generate manually a height map with the grills, which is going to work nicely, but it won't align properly, and that's a whole lot of work I'm just not interested in putting in right now. I'm going to slightly adjust the levels. Curves probably work better, but I can never quite figure that out. Yeah, it's a little bit off color as well. Just see. Yeah, so it's a little bit on the yellow side, but that's probably accurate. It's probably a bit yellowish, sort of. There's that yellowy metal sort of appearance. So I'm going to stick with that. Actually, am I going to stick with that? What I also sometimes do is just to make the texture come alive a bit, the material come alive and not look like it's completely ripped off a photo, is to get some kind of variation in some of the properties, like the what do they call it? The stuff that makes it look real. What do you call it? The things with the roughness and the specularity and the metallic thing. This is all going to be a bit metallic. I think I could possibly make that bit non-metallic. Yes, I'm going to do that. So I'm in the channels mode, add an alpha. I'm going to turn on the other channels just so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to, in a very bodgy way, which is my favourite way, just select that sticker. So it's black by default, which is metallic 0. I'll just use it directly as a metallic thing. Here's a value. In fact, I want everything else to be that colour. So that's going to be fully metallic, not metallic. I want it to be sort of halfish metallic, and I want that selection inverted. And then I'm just going to use a gradient fill as the quickest way I know to pop that on. So now my alpha channel is all a bit grey, apart from that black bit, which will be for the labels. So that should make it look a little bit better. I'm going to save that out. I have a I have a thing where I can't speak because I'm concentrating. I have a convention for storing stuff. It's a horrible mess. I think I'm going to call this, is it south of France? Is it Antibes? Industrial electrical. Electrics. So I've got all kinds of rubbish in here. So my system is, let's see, electrics, T for texture, aircon A. I hope to have at least 2 aircon models because there's a lot of them. I want a bit of visual variety. Yeah, and I'm going to just maybe add, was it 1024? 512. And that tells me the size and what it is and what category it is, and that's just my system, which doesn't work because I don't apply it consistently. Okay, so that's now saved there. Let me go into the Unreal editor, set this up for later. So I'm going to go to my horrible naming system, and I'm going to go to electrics. I'll make this, I followed the official convention of having a separate structure for textures. Where's it gone? Down here, and yeah, and I don't like it because it's full of decals. Oh yeah, that's decals, isn't it? Okay, so it's basically nothing in it. So I used that convention, but it's not working for me very well. I mean, there's some things like these sort of surfaces which are, have potential uses in different things. Maybe I want to have a plain texture but have a bit of that sort of texture, bit of that sort of normal map to it. But for most stuff, I'm actually copying a thing like an air conditioning unit with a skin, and so I'm just keeping that with the thing that I am modelling. I'm now getting confused. Anyway, point being, I'm going to load that into my electrics material skins. Oh, that's another aircon. There we go. Right, that one. So that's my basic texture, and you can see there that the alpha mask is being used in a way that's not helpful. You can do some tweaking here. You can make it super vibrant, which I don't want to do. In fact, yeah. And you can change the curves to increase the contrast, and the gamma of it, really. One of these does the contrasty stuff. Was that one? Yeah. Anyway, I'd rather mess about in Photoshop with that. Right click it, create material as a starting point. I changed the T to an M. I'm fighting against the default standard. I'm going to take off the resolution as well. So I've now got my basic material, and I'm just going to plug that alpha channel straight into the metallic. I want that to also maybe affect the specularity. I have to admit, I thought I understood specularity in this system, but I don't think I do. Roughness is the inverse of the other thing that Lightwave does, whatever it is. It has glossiness. So glossiness is the opposite of roughness, I think. Back to Unreal. Oh, I've been making the material in the wrong window. So that's my texture alpha plugged into metallic. The roughness, I think I want the paper bit to be a bit less rough, maybe. So how am I going to do this? I want inverse. So I'm going to start with 1 minus. So 1 minus that thing, so that the metallic bit is mid. The paper is now higher. I want to multiply that. This may not quite work, and plug that into the roughness and maybe make it 0.5. So that's really shiny and a bit shiny. That's not quite what I wanted. 0.8 maybe. So the paper's not very shiny, but metal's a bit more shiny. Still a wee bit too shiny. Maybe 1 is what I want. So the paper's Maybe disappointingly not shiny. Maybe I'm just going to, after all that, stick in a constant value of something like 0.5, which makes it shiny enough to 0.6, shiny enough to tell the difference between metallic and non-metallic. So that's going away. Specular, I don't know. Let's try. It's not very much like a mirror. 0.1, it pulls in a bit of the environment, but it's not working like a mirror. So that's my basic texture. It'd be nice to put a normal map in, but with that grill, that's just going to be difficult. Maybe I'll try it just to see what happens. It's a small texture, 512 by 512. Somewhere. Alright, so I'm fairly happy with that. Somewhere it will. Alright, that's no longer a skin, that's now a mesh. No. I meant to put that somewhere else. I'm now totally confused by my own system. I've got materials where there shouldn't be materials. The texture, let's find that. Ugh, I hate it when it's shrunk down. So, where is it? Actions. Reference viewer, no. Size map. So, that's the size, it's nothing. So I can mess about with extra maps, no problem. So I'm going to run this thing called Crazy Bump. Whoop. And I'm going to try, I don't know if that's going to just copy the RGB, but I've copied that to the clipboard. Open, paste from clipboard. Your guess is as good as mine, probably that one. So it does have a shape recognition algorithm. I'll try and bring this over here. And it's not done a bad job. It looks horrible in some bits. I'm going to tweak this. I find that the large detail doesn't tend to be helpful. I'll reduce the shape recognition a bit. So it gives it a bit of definition. And this is the, can I resize that? Yes, just a little. It gives you a height map. This isn't really, oh, that was the wrong thing. Some tweaking of that can give you some interesting, like that is more on the money actually. That's probably what I want. That's got a bit of the fancy. So that might actually give me the height map that I want to make a nice. So actually the normals are probably working quite nicely after all that. So I do want that. You can then fiddle with a bit larger detail. The fine detail, probably not helpful, but it might help to define that more. I think I don't want much fine detail on that one. It'll also give you an occlusion map. Maybe I want that. And the specularity is, well, it's an more interesting version of mine. There's no way that I'm aware of to override this. Like I can't edit that in this editor. I'd have to edit it separately. I'm going to stick with my specularity, which more means roughness in the Unreal Engine context. No. Sometimes these work nicely. Make it a bit brighter. So basically what I want off there is the normals, I think. Maybe the occlusion. So I'm going to save that. Save normals to file. I want to go to electrics. Unfortunately it doesn't work properly. You've got to just type it in. Normal. And I'm going to take the occlusion for fun. I would often add the occlusion as the alpha layer maybe, but I've already got an alpha layer used for the roughness, so I'm going to save that out too. If you actually open it from the file, you can save all textures at once, and that's a lot easier. And here's some really old stuff I did with Substance Painter back when I was skinning things in the proper way, but it just created files that were because also I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I don't think it matters what the file format is. It's all read by Unreal, so that is OK. So I'm going to refine my material. Let's bring in, wherever you are, normal occlusion. Now you can also use a normal channel, the alpha channel, in a normal map, but it's treated differently in the engine, and it's a faff to make it convert to the right format to make it work properly as normal map, so I don't bother. I don't think you're really saving that much on the file size, as opposed to having it as a separate thing. So this may be overkill, but ambient occlusions going in there, normal going in there, nothing too fancy. And there we have it. So it might look a little bit better, and you get a bit of that surface detail brought out a bit. So hopefully that's going to look quite good.